The Rowville Rail study was commissioned by the incoming Baillieu government in around about 2011. The study started, and which was one of their election promises to look at Rowville Rail, Doncaster Rail, and a few other election commitments to look into new rail proposals around Melbourne. I was appointed as the study manager after Sinclair Knight Mertz had put in a proposal. We won the contract to do the study. Yeah, I think the Rowville Rail should definitely be built. We said in our study that it would be feasible to build it any time, but that you wouldn't be able to run the most efficient rail service on those lines until the Melbourne Metro tunnel was complete, because that would provide more capacity and free up capacity on other lines and so on. But in particular, it would mean you could run Rowville trains right through to the city and out the other side on Melbourne Metro, because it's on the same line as the Cranbourne and Pakenham services, which are going to use Melbourne Metro. So that was one of the major findings of the study, that it should definitely be built, but it would have to wait until the Melbourne Metro was completed. There is no costing in the report and no economic evaluation of the economic consequences of the benefits of the project. In other words, the economic value of the time savings and other impacts. We did do that work. It was part of the original brief. It was actually decided by the government of the day not to release that information. I think mainly because of the concern that if the cost was escalated once more detail was gone into, that there would be concerns in the community that the cost was blowing out and that sort of thing. And I think also because they weren't actually planning, given what we'd said about the need to do Melbourne Metro first, because they weren't actually planning to do a business case to commit funding at any stage in the foreseeable future. They really decided to hold off on publishing any information on costs and benefits, economic benefits. The cost was, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head without having the numbers in front of me, but back in the dollars of the day of 5 years ago, broadly speaking, somewhere between $2 and $3 billion to build the railway line and acquire the additional rolling stock to run on the tracks. And I think we estimated that the benefits would be significantly more than that. So the benefit cost ratio would have been well over 1, probably around 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, which is a fairly healthy return for a project of this type. A lot of people were saying, just go ahead and build it. And I think a lot of people out in that area had been hoping and expecting a railway would be built many years ago, because it was first proposed in 1969. And that was before the area was even really developed around Rowville and so on. And early plans showed the railway line. The land was never officially reserved, but it was there in all the structure planning and allowances were made. But no commitments were ever made to build it. And so, I think a lot of the community was a bit fed up with and yet another study being done. From memory, I think there was very limited need to acquire land, mainly because it was proposed to build the railway almost entirely in the reserve, the Wellington Road Reserve. There was some potential land acquisition required at the eastern end in Stud Park area to build the rail terminus, and perhaps also in the Stud Road, Wellington Road intersection area, where the railway would have to curve around. But the expectation was that it would be underground for most of that area, so if it was in cut and cover, for example, the land could be reinstated above it. Although there is quite a lot of concern always about the size of the impacts during construction, the dust, the noise, the vibrations and the effects on houses and foundations and the trucks and things like that. The longer term benefits are usually clearly understood, and most people are quite happy, actually, I would say, to put up with some of those construction impacts because they're going to get the benefit in the longer term as well. Mass transit and mass public transport will still be an important mode for movements of large numbers of people in and out of concentrated areas like the city centres and the main activity centres, where even with autonomous and driverless cars, there's going to be too many of them on the road to fit them all in, even though they'll be making much more efficient use of road space. If the Rowville Rail isn't built, I think Rowville, and particularly the area around Stud Park shopping centre, will struggle to sort of maintain and develop its significance as a local centre. And I think, as is happening in a lot of other areas where there's a low provision of public transport, the dependence on cars and car use will just continue to be the main feature of suburban life. Of course, it's been a few years now since this study was done, and so it's gathering dust on the shelf. I'm sure there'll be a need for another study into it in another few years, mainly probably to pick it up and get the details right again and update it all. But yeah, the main problem will be whether it gets funding priority and political commitment to get built. And that's the main question mark in my mind. I think the recent discussion papers being put out by Infrastructure Victoria are saying that it may be not such a high priority because, and they've been referring to our report, because it doesn't produce much of a shift from car to rail. I think with the tools available to us, we were underestimating that likely shift, and that once you build a railway line like Rowville, as has been the case in the north with the rail extension to South Morang, for example, as soon as that was built, more or less on the first day, the car park was full, and the trains have been full right from day one. And I think that would be the same with Rowville. You know, you build it and they'll come is the situation, really.